We're live. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are having this series with Dee Makadia. Dee, I've never actually said, am I saying your surname correctly?
You are. It's beautiful.
Good. We're having the first of the new series, Entrepreneurs Gold Nuggets, with Dee as our guest, and we'll come back to you in a minute, Dee. I just want to say welcome. It's lovely to have you here.
Happy to be here.
So I want to talk a little, thank you, Dee. I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing today and how it started. So last year, or maybe 18 months or so, I ran this series of Entrepreneurs Gold Nuggets, where I interviewed people like Dee and other entrepreneurs around what it's like, what their journey has been like getting to where they are today. Because, you know, being an entrepreneur and owner of a business, it actually takes courage. Some of you have come across a lot of different challenges in your life being an entrepreneur or business owner, and you know that there is a mindset that is required or a strength that is required that's very different to being in the corporate world or an employee. And so I have previously interviewed some amazing entrepreneurs, and I stopped running it for various reasons. And in April this year, my dad passed away. And my dad was an entrepreneur. He was about to turn 90 this year. So if you go back to his early first 20, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years of age, he was an entrepreneur really before that word was even used. When I grew up, he was a businessman. But when I look back on it, he was actually an entrepreneur. And so in honor and tribute of my dad, I decided to start this series 2, and interview some new wonderful entrepreneurs like yourself, Dee. Each one of us has a journey that we take. I know, and I nearly cried then, so I managed to get through that without crying. Each one of us has a journey that we take to get our businesses up and running and successful, so that we have the freedom and the wealth and the peace that we go into business to achieve. But, you know, so often we don't end up with that. We end up with either just another job that we're tied to, with less money than we make as an employee, or all sorts of other challenges. We end up being the ones that work when the staff are having their Christmas holidays and don't get to take time off, and we pay ourselves last, and all those kind of things. So this interview that we're having today is raw and from the heart, and it's about people's journeys with Dee. It's about the journey that Dee's been on over the years, and it's for any entrepreneur who wants to take their business to the next level and learn valuable insights and gold nuggets that Dee's going to share with us today. So let me share a little bit with you about Dee, and then I'll hand over to you, Dee, to carry on. So Dee started off as an optometrist, and then he went on to own his own store, his own Specsavers store in Dandenong. Dee ran the store for 8 to 9 years and turned it into a successful practice. And then in December, he sold the practice, December last year, and decided to venture and try something new. So Dee has been working on different projects since, and is now a true entrepreneur. So I'd like to hand over to you, Dee, and say thank you so much for coming. It's wonderful to have you here. And how about you share whatever you want about your journey so far?
Sure, absolutely. Look, thanks, Karen. Wonderful story. Thanks for the lovely introduction as well. Like your dad, I think if we think back to a few generations, a lot of people have entrepreneurial grandparents. They just didn't know the word. So my grandfather was one of those. He was an entrepreneur back in Uganda, in Africa. And then my father became an entrepreneur. That's a bit of a buzzword, but, you know, businessman, created one pharmacy, went on to having several. And from that, I guess I saw that as a opportunity for me to learn from them. And I was inspired by them, to be honest. And I thought one day I want that. And so that's what I worked towards. And then I think in the early part, when I studied to be an optometrist, I didn't really see myself going that far down the line in that field. So a friend approached me and said, "Do you want to start a business?" And I said, "All right." So we started a e-commerce website where we used to get people selling Indian products onto the internet. So we'd my job was to go door to door for 2 years, just go in to meet these retailers who knew nothing about the internet properly, because this is 2007, and get them on board, educate them, get their product details, put them online, and then get them to sell their products. So I did that for 2 years, but I didn't get enough income from that. So at that point, I got married, and then I had to, have a stable income. So then at that point, I decided to go back into optometry. So that kept me going. And I thought, my wife and I had a chat, and we said, let's go now for the franchise route. Let's have a look to see what opportunity there is within optics in franchising. And look, by that time, I'd worked at about 40 different Specsavers stores across the Midlands and across the south of England. So I knew the industry pretty well. And I also worked at 15 different businesses. So not just Specsavers, I worked across the whole industry. So I had a lot of experience by then. And so I chose Specsavers because of the values of the business, and the community aligned really well with myself. And Specsavers had a way of encouraging entrepreneurship internally as well, and supporting that. So I like that for that reason. So eventually got this, there was a bit of a thing at this. Have you ever been through that thing where you're up for a promotion and you don't quite get it? Have you been there?
I've been, to be honest, Dee, I have been self-employed and running my own businesses since virtually when I did my tertiary education.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's amazing.
Sorry.
So, well, in this situation, I was about to get the store, and it went to somebody else. And so that felt like me not getting my promotion at that time. So then I thought, well, like entrepreneurs do, you can't leave things up to fate. So you got to take it in your own hands. I waited for the universe to bring it into my lap. It didn't come. So then I said, well, got to do something with it. So then I decided to come to Australia. So I came across, and as soon as I landed, there was a job offering, which then fell through, unfortunately. So I had to start again. And I found an option there of somebody wanting to sell his Specsavers store, and we made it happen. And we got the store, which was fantastic. But my biggest learnings were when I actually ran the store. That was like the biggest growth journey, right? As you can probably attest to as well. When you have a team, when you have, there's not much of a safety net. You've really got to just make it work. You got to grind. So that's what I did, and it was really good because I got to put into practice what I'd learned, but the journey was not straightforward. I don't know about you, but when I started, I felt lonely. Did you feel anything like that?
Yes, and Dee, of course. I mean, that's how we start. And I want to sort of address a couple of things that you've said. First of all, I want to go back to you talking about starting at Specsavers, because they were a place that you felt a connection with their values.
Very important.
So I personally think that values in a business, the person's values who leads a business, and then the team working and being in synergy with the same values is something that makes a difference in a business. What would you?
Yeah, I fully agree, because when your values are right, that then transcends down into your teams. And so the culture is right. The culture is good. People walk in. You know how I define culture of my practice, how I used to, is when a customer or just a random person is walking past the store, if they're walking past and they feel the energy that's coming from inside the shop, like the fun, the buzz, that's the culture of the store. So they suddenly turn and go, oh, what's going in? Well, what's going on over there? And then they will actually come in just because they like the vibe of what's happening. So to me, that was what we were trying to always create.
So I guess that's something you learn as you were talking about learning some things. I guess you didn't really know that. You didn't set out, or did you, with that goal in mind? Or was that something you learned as you went along?
Yeah, it's something I learned. I always knew that the places where I had worked, there's a variety, right? Because having worked at 40 different places, you see some stores where they're very strict and rigid with their structure. And you can tell the vibe when you walk into there to go and work, versus if you go into a place which has more fluidity and more autonomy and, giving, I guess, responsibilities and handing them over, and you can tell when you walk into a store like that. And I think customer service, you got to talk about customer service here, right? So you've got to know what good customer service looks like. So that all didn't come naturally. That stuff that was taught. So, through programs, but also through learning and making mistakes.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, it's the customer experience that comes from the top. So like you say, the team and the values and the ethics and what they're doing infuses down to the customer experience at the end. And that's our end product, isn't it? Because people don't buy products. They buy the experience of everything that they get when they go into that store. And so if they go into a store and they don't get don't have a great experience, then they may well walk out and not purchase, or they may well not go back again.
Yeah. Ultimately, what helped in this is the understanding of, it sounds strange, but spirituality and connection. When you realize the connection between people, it goes beyond just service. It's actually just, it's energy exchange. It is what it is. When you realize that, then suddenly everything becomes a little bit more clear and a little bit more easier to handle.
I love that you brought that up because, of course, that's my area of expertise. And I like to say to people, we are not our human bodies. We are a spiritual being living in this bodysuit. And when you think about it like that, and I always like to compare it with, how at Easter and different times people get inside a bodysuit that could be, a comic or a rabbit or whatever. And that that's not the real person. The real person is inside. And, when I compare, that's what we like, is our bodysuit is not us. What we are is a spiritual being. And yet many of us don't understand the difference and don't realize, and we attach our identity to that bodysuit and the physical things that go with it, plus the roles that we hold. And that's not our identity either. But we're getting off track here. So
but this is good. This is exactly it.
Yeah. And so, Dee, what I want to know is, how did you learn, and what did you learn as you went through from the beginning as a new business owner, entrepreneur? What were some of your main, lessons that you went, oh, I have to learn to do something differently, or this is a challenge and I don't know the answer straight off? What were some of your big learnings?
So the first is to realize you're not the one who knows everything. So I remember when I came in first, right? Like, you've learned little bits of here, little bits there, and you go, I finally get to put it into practice. And you go, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this. So you go hard. That's what I did. I went hard. Yeah, I got the financial results for the business, but at the sacrifice of not looking after the team in the way that I should have. So when you do that, that's when you end up in that lonely place that I was mentioning before. And then you have to self-reflect. You have to understand, what's gone on there. But still, sometimes, like at that point, I still didn't wake up until I got feedback enough to wake me up. Sometimes you need to be shook, and I was shook. So when I had that was my moment of going, right, I can't continue doing things the same way. It's like any entrepreneur out there.
Tell us more about that. What was that feedback? Do you want to share?
Yeah. It was as a leader, my leadership style was very strict in one way. It was the way that I knew that I had to be a leader, that my parents taught me, and my dad's dad taught him. So, being very driven, very focused on what you're doing. So that is what I did. But that led to micromanagement. And that is the worst thing I found as a leader. You don't want to micromanage. You just got to let it run. And that realization of, you don't need to be 100%. be at 80, 85%, that's fine. The
Yes.
business can still be profitable. It can still run well. You don't need to hold the reins so tight.
I love that you talk about that, because micromanaging often comes from perfectionists, because we don't
Very
trust
true.
other people to do it the way that we would do it, and to make the mistakes that they might make to learn. And just we won't trust enough to let go of control, and so we micromanage. And it's
That's
a great
right.
lesson for business people and leaders and executives and team leaders, is that the best way to get the best out of our team is to give them a level of independence and autonomy and control of their own destination or their own outcomes, so that they learn. But they also, the more important thing is that they feel important and part of an important team or business.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll just add to that, because you said that really well. And what I found that worked really well is to make whatever thought process or decision that I'm about to make for the business, not make it mine, but make it theirs. So coach them in a way to be able to end up on the same reasoning that I have. And therefore it's not mine anymore. And then that buy-in is fantastic. You can't beat it, because it's no longer mine. It's the team's decision. And right now, I'm talking to a few different franchisees in this space, some in the pizza industry, some in retail, and they've got this issue, and people leave. 10 years, not that great, because they don't feel like they're part of something bigger. And they don't feel valued, as you put it.
Feeling part of and feeling valued are two of, the most important gifts, I guess, that we can give to our team and to people in general. Yeah. That's awesome, Dee. So let's jump along to a couple of the other questions.
Sure.
So we've kind of covered but maybe just recap on what you believe is the most important thing right now in your business goals moving forward.
Okay, so
for your own success.
For my own success, and I think, to be honest, anyone who is in a similar position, who is going themselves, the biggest thing is relationship building. You've got to be fantastic at relationship building, and that includes communication. That's like, how do you speak? How do you receive a conversation? How flexible are you? Just being open to everything in a relationship. And then from initially building a relationship, how can you then from there turn that into a partnership? How can you work synergistically going forward for a long period and be mutually beneficial? Because I think when you're trying to make something of yourself, the situation the situation you're in when you're faced with somebody else, like you, Karen, as well, right? So now we're in a win-win situation. It's always got to be a win-win. No matter how you look at things, you got to create that for the person you're opposite and for yourself, and ideally for the customer if this is a three-way interaction. So for me, relationship building right now. What about you? What's really important for you?
Oops, we look like we popped out for a minute, but we're back. Are the two most important things still, even with AI and all of this modern technology? Let's switch. What do you think? Where do you think AI and the change in technology is going for you now? How do you think it's going to play out in your business?
So in the business that I'm currently in now, it's going to be very much, it's going to be beneficial. AI is certainly going to help. It makes things a lot easier to, bring together like this, like a StreamYard kind of streaming service. I mean, that wouldn't have been possible 5 years ago, I don't think. And bringing connectivity with all social media together, so you can go on one platform, put everything out. So is it going to affect us in a negative way? I'm sure there are certain things which are probably not going to be, as favorable, but overall, I think it's going to be an improvement to what we're trying to do. If we use it the right way, we've got to see it positively and focus on the positives as much as we can.
Yes, and I think you're right. If we use it the right way, some people, I guess my age, maybe in the 40s, 50s and older, are worried that because young people are embracing it more, I guess, are worried that it's going to take away that personal connection. And I think, as you said, having rapport, building rapport and connection is so important, that as long as we strive to continue doing that and allow AI to help us do that, I think
That's
that's
fine.
the goal.
Do you know,
We've
Karen,
got
I
to,
think as well, it depends on service, right? So my goal, and I'm sure yours is to be of service. Yeah.
mm,
So if I can be now of service, and this is why I left my job as an optometrist, being just stuck
mm,
in a test room, I was of service to those people who were in my test room and my team, I guess, and Danong. But how could I contribute more? How could I reach people on the other side of the planet with the stuff that I've learned over 20 years
mm.
and things that are not normally spoken about in the world of optics, for example, or in the world of franchising? How could I really reach people? So now I'm talking to people in the US, in the UK, helping them with their franchises, and that wouldn't have been possible. So from a sense of fulfillment from my side, but also of service, I'm just grateful that I get the chance to use technology to allow me to do that.
Absolutely. And that's the thing now, is we're looking at leverage. We're looking at leveraging ourselves in so many different ways, like you say, to reach more people. Yes, when we had a retail service business, it was a lot more labor intensive and time intensive, one-to-one. And like you, when I moved, I said I'm never going to have that kind of business again for a number of reasons. However, I want to make sure that I'm in a smart business where I'm leveraged and I have some passive ongoing income and things like that. We've got a couple of guests on here too, so I just want to say welcome to them. Belinda, thank you. Belinda's saying absolutely love a win-win. It's so important. And Moana is one of my wonderful interviewees from my previous series, and a very good friend of mine, Moana Robinson, and she's saying hello. I'm watching. Great to have you both here. So yeah, Dee. So let's talk about, for the next few minutes before my alarm's going off, and then we'll it's gone so fast. I know we haven't covered a lot of the questions, but it doesn't matter. Let's talk about really where you're going in the next 5 to 10 years. What is your dream and vision for your business and your life? If you could have it work the way that you want it to, and have whatever you want, to have that peace and fulfillment, and be waking up every morning going, oh my gosh, I just love the way my life is.
Great question, Karen. Great question. I think only once we get really laser focused on what we want our outcome to be, can we put steps in place to allow us to get there. And that can be on this grand scale, or it can be every single moment of every single day. Focus on the outcome. And for me, that outcome is to have the ability to be able to impact people around the world and to be able to help literally them with, so it's a pyramid. If we can help the people at the top of the pyramid, they can help those people below them. So my fulfillment will come when I know that there's several people around the world who are using a system that I know that works. So I'm working and I've created this franchise mastery program, and it break things into three easy steps that will allow any business or franchise to make life better for their teams, for themselves, for their loved ones. And that filters down generationally, like it filtered for me and for you. If they're happy, the parents are happy, then their kids are happy, their grandkids will be happy, and it will just continue. So teaching people the right way to live and right way to be with each other, I think that's my mission. Time. So so for me, that's my mission. Yeah.
Yeah, we have 5 more minutes. That sounds amazing. So Dee, I love that you've got that destination in mind. And we have Belinda saying, I've got to go, thank you, we'll watch the recording, thank you, Belinda. And Moana's saying that sounds intriguing, and And we have another guest who came on here. Oh, Krupa, it's great to be here. And then we had another person who was
Judith as well.
Judith. Yeah, Judith. I love the teamwork idea. So, Dee, it sounds like you've got an amazing program that you've put together. And so I'm looking forward to hearing the next chapter of your book.
Shall I tell you? Shall I tell you what my aim is? What I'm going to do right now? So I've decided to take a leaf out of Haley Chu's book, which is that give her a shout out because we went to a 100 speakers conference and it was really great. So she had lunch with 100 speakers, 100 strangers, and that's great. You know, you can learn so much. So my aim is to have conversations with 100 franchisees of different areas, different sectors, and bring that knowledge together and share it, make that program even better.
That's definitely the way to do it. I know Moana had a goal of 1,000 people, I think, wasn't it, Moana? And excuse me, without that goal, you're not going to get anywhere. So to start off with that, having conversations with 100 franchisees, did you say?
Yeah.
That is going to happen when you also have a buy-win. Remember, when you set a goal, if you have a buy-win, it grounds it. And that's the hard part for us to do because we're scared to say, I'll do it by the end of the year or I'll do it by June next year because what say we fail? And of course, this is part of the mindset stuff and the thinking and the unconscious thinking that stops us that I talk about with my clients. So let's ask you, Dee, when are you going to have had those conversations with 100 people?
Within 3 months. So if you look at my diary now, it's back to back. Like tonight, 7:30 p.m., I have a call with someone in the UK who owns a franchise, a pizza franchise over there. So it's my evenings are packed and my wife hates it. So my evenings are packed and my days packed. So, but I wouldn't change it because this is, you know how it's like. If you are waking up with such a love for what you do, a passion for what you do, it doesn't matter whether it's a Sunday or whether it's a Saturday evening. It really doesn't matter. I'm happy to just get up and work at it. You know, for me, that's my joy. So it's not work.
Yeah, that's how we all feel. Yes, absolutely. Always. When I'm working on, in and hopefully not in, but on my own businesses, because that's what I'm passionate about. And I don't know if I mentioned that, one of the reasons I became an entrepreneur and business owner was because of something my dad said to me when I was a young girl. Eddie was saying passionate. And he said to me, I was only probably 10 years old, and he looked at me and he said, Karen, you can have your own business too when you grow up. You can do whatever you want. And that for me was the biggest gift that he could ever have given me. And, many parents don't tell their children that. They tell them they can't do what they want because it's not realistic or because it won't make any money or whatever. And so, that's amazing. I'm just going to finish off by reading a couple more of these and acknowledging these comments. So Mo's asking you, Moana, we call him Mo, is asking you, are you ticking them off? Are you keeping a track of them? Because that's also really important, that you're counting them.
So behind my computer right here, I've got a board and I write it on there and I tick it. Yeah. So yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Moana. I love that. Yeah. Thank you very much. You do have to tick it off. You have to count your blessings and the wins. Yeah.
Yeah, and Krupa, I don't know if I said, she's saying, great to be here, love the focus on outcome, which is so true. And of course, that's one of my 101 in my coaching is having that outcome, that destination. And all the experts agree who are in this kind of work is that without an outcome, you will never, ever achieve what you want to achieve. And, there's a quote that I use, which is no wind is favorable to the sailor without a destination in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what I've created as well is I call it my velocity plan. See, I love the concept of velocity because in maths, velocity equals speed times direction. Yes. You need speed, but without direction, you're just aimless. You need to have speed times direction, and that's going to get you to your velocity.
That's great. I love that. So we've got Eddie here saying I'm passionate, and then Moana said, You could have a list of 100 numbers and write the names against the numbers as you go. That's a good way of doing it too.
I will take that on. I will do that. Thank you, Moana.
So I think this draws us to the end, Dee. Is there one final tip or gold nugget that you, as a person who has weathered the storm and been through a lot already, would give to a new budding or a budding entrepreneur, or a person thinking about starting their own business, or a person in the early days going through some of those challenges that you've been through? Is there one gold nugget that you would like to share that you've learned along the way?
It's pretty simple for me. Be okay to dream. You've got to dream. If you don't dream, you will not be able to think about it. If you don't think about it, you won't be able to act on it.
That's right.
If you can't act on it, you won't realize it. And it will just be a dream, which gets lost. You've got a dream to allow to create your future, to be able to take a control of your destiny in the direction that you're heading. That is my tip. So dream.
I love that too, because of course, thank you so much for sharing that. That's what I teach as well, is that, as you say, everything is created twice. First in thought and then in form. First in thought, in our minds, in the land of possibility, right?
Correct.
And then it comes to this physical world. That is dreaming. Thinking things up in the land of ideas and possibility is our dreams. And without that, as you say, nothing will happen. And as humans, we do that all the time. But as we get older, when we're little, we do it all the time. As we get older, we start to lose that ability, or lose that belief in ourselves that we can dream about something and make it happen. So we've got people loving this, loving your feedback, loving your answers to my questions. And Judith says, destiny is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. Absolutely agree with you. And Moana says, best ideas come at 2 a.m. or in the shower. Mine quite often come
or
in the shower
as well. Yeah.
So, Dee, it's been absolutely wonderful having this conversation with you.
Wonderful. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you. If anybody does want to reach out to me, I'll just probably put in here, Karen. If anyone does want to talk about franchises or anything business, please reach out to me, connect. I'd love to interview you, part of my 100 franchisees. If you want to be a part of that, please give me a shout out.
Yes, so if you put it in the chat on LinkedIn or in here, I think if you put it in here, Dee, a contact for you. So either your LinkedIn address or some way that people can get hold of you as well. It could be whatever your preferred
just my website.
way. Yeah, so put it in here.
I'll put my website on there. Yeah,
and then I think it'll come up in both LinkedIn and YouTube. It may show up in both, which would be great.
Okay. So if you just search Dee Makadia, it should come up.
Yeah, awesome.
Sure.
So thank you everyone for joining, all of those who watch the replay as well. Please do reach out to Dee or myself if you have any questions about any of the conversation that we've had today. And on that note, we may well have part 2 of Dee's in a little while when he's achieved his 100. I'd love to do that, Dee. So on that note, we'll end the stream. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Dee, and I'll talk to you in backstage again.
Sure. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.